All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks to those on Zoom. My name is Nick DiPalermo. I'm with Weston and Sampson. We are the designers on this project, which is our South Eagleville Road, Route 275 pedestrian safety improvements. I'm going to sit down for the rest of this just to make sure I'm talking into the mic here so everyone can hear. There's a sign-in sheet going around if you wouldn't mind. Just putting your info on there. If you have any questions or comments, we will open that up at the end. So here with us tonight, we have John Carrington, the Director of Public Works on Zoom, Derek Delage sitting next to me, Assistant Town Engineer, Michael Joyce with Weston and Sampson as well, and then myself, Nick DiPalermo. So just a quick agenda. We'll go over the project area, some of the various projects going on in this location. We'll look at some existing conditions, and then we'll move into what we're doing for our proposed improvements and specifically safety improvements. And then, at the end, we'll open up for questions. So this is the overall project area. Can I move this? It's a little bit better. So you see South Eagleville Road from the intersection of Route 195 all the way to approximately the intersection of Maple Road. That orange line represents the project that we're talking about tonight, the Pedestrian Safety Improvements Project. You'll see a few other colored lines on there. The green line represents the sanitary sewer improvements that are happening right now also. And those are for the nonprofit housing development project, or the South Eagleville Green project. The blue line represents a future complete streets project that's going to run from the intersection of South Eagleville south on Maple Road. And then we also have the purple line shown from Maple Road west to the Hunting Lodge intersection, which will basically act to provide that connectivity, which we'll get into a little bit further as we look at our proposed improvements. I tried to just point out some more kind of key areas on this map. So Mansfield Housing Authority over here, the sewer lines running through, and then providing service for this Eagleville Green development. Over here is the Mansfield Apartments redevelopment project, which is currently in design by UConn. And then, we're sitting here in the Mansfield Town Hall, and next to it is the community center. So just to get an idea of what the project area looks like now, we have some site photos as well as the aerial. So starting at the south end of the project at the Maple Road intersection, what the corridor looks like now is basically a huge expansive area of pavement, really wide lane widths, huge shoulders. And all that does really is give drivers the freedom to basically go, as fast as they want. There's nothing there saying slow down. This is a campus area. There are pedestrians, there's bicyclists. And so as we click through these existing conditions, you'll kind of see that pattern. In addition to the wide lane widths, you'll also see on the west, or if you're looking at this picture, the south side, there's an approximately like 6 to 7 foot wide bituminous concrete sidewalk. And so as part of our improvements, we're going to be widening that and making it into a 10-foot wide multi-use trail. So just clicking through, you see the huge shoulder here and the adjacent sidewalk. There are a couple of mid-block crossings, the Westwood crossing and the Eastwood Road crossing. Both are marked with, your standard pedestrian crossing here. There is definitely space to improve the safety of those crossings. And that's something that we're seriously looking into for this project. As we get into the improvements, you'll see what we'd like to do at those mid-block crossings. This picture here is basically defining the start of the Yukon Mansfield redevelopment project. This is the driveway in and out for that housing development. So at this point, our 10-foot wide trail is going to end at the driveway, and Yukon's multi-use trail will pick up in front of that housing development. You can see in this picture, there is that sewer pump station there. The sidewalk runs in front of it. We're looking to keep the trail also in front of that, not to disturb any of that. This is the last portion of the corridor going up to Route 195, entering campus. We have another mid-block crossing, which we'd also like to improve the safety of that. Also on the west or north side, there is no pedestrian connectivity here. There's a sidewalk up here on Route 195, but nothing that, easily connects pedestrians up to the community center or the town hall. So we will be looking to improve that condition as well. So starting to look at some of our proposed improvements. This is basically a hybrid of a cross section and a rendering of, at this point, what we're looking at for proposed improvements. So, the main goal of this project is to increase safety for pedestrians and for bicycles and to slow vehicles down. And to do that, some of the tactics we use, we like to call it traffic calming. And so you can see in the middle of the corridor, for parts of the road, we're going to be proposing a 4-foot wide raised median. That will act to narrow lane widths. It's going to provide, that vertical kind of barrier in the roadway that tells vehicles that there's a barrier here. I need to slow myself down. I need to take more caution. We'll be going in with standard 11-foot lanes, and in some areas dropping the shoulder down to 2 feet. And then just outside the roadway, we'll have a 5-foot buffer from the edge of pavement to the start of our 10-foot wide bituminous multi-use trail. The point of a multi-use trail is for two-way travel directions and for a variety of users. So we'd like to encourage bicyclists and pedestrians to use the multi-use trail at the same time. This is just another view of a typical section at a different part of the corridor. So for this section, we'll be doing a 6-foot wide median. The existing road area is so great that we are able to go in with a wider median, which will allow us, as I get into it further, it will allow us to provide safer crossings for pedestrians, and again, acts to calm traffic. And at the same time, you see again the 10-foot wide trail and the 5-foot buffer, keeping pedestrians and cyclists separated from traffic. So I know this is kind of hard to see, but I just wanted to give an overall view of this project and what we're proposing. So starting just west of the Maple Road intersection, we're going to start introducing those 4-foot wide medians through this narrower section of roadway. And then as the road widens, we're able to introduce these 6-foot wide medians. And you'll see the mid-block crossings going through the medians. Further down, as we get more in front of the community center, in front of the town hall, we'd be looking to switch from a hardscape or brick or concrete paver median into maybe like a hybrid with some pavers or potentially some plantings as a nice kind of entrance into campus, almost like a gateway treatment. And again, you'll see another mid-block crossing here in front of the community center. And this area down here is part of the Yukon redevelopment project. So I'll go through these more zoomed in as we get going here. So taking a look at the start of our project, I tried to blend in some of the other projects that are happening at the same time. So in the roadway, like I mentioned, you'll see the 4-foot wide medians. These will act to slow drivers down. It's going to narrow those lane widths and provide that vertical barrier. Down here, you'll see the widening of that existing bituminous sidewalk into a 10-foot wide multi-use trail. It's going to run along the front of the Eagleville Green Housing Development Project. And then as we get to the Maple Road intersection, we have multiple projects that are all kind of happening at this intersection. So the multi-use trail will continue across Maple Road with another median providing that pedestrian refuge in the center, which allows pedestrians to cross one lane of traffic. If they need to stop in the median to look for the other direction of traffic, they can do that safely and then continue crossing the rest of the way. And then if you see in here, I also provided the line work, which basically shows the continuation of the multi-use trail through the downtown loop connector project. And so that'll connect, all the way from Route 195 down South Eagleville and then across onto Hunting Lodge, Separatist, which is where that existing multi-use trail exists now. And then the Lot Sit project down Maple will also tie in to this trail and will allow further connectivity down Maple to the school. So this next section, we're getting into a little bit of a wider existing corridor. So we have that room to work. Currently proposing 6-foot wide medians. And as you can see at the two mid-block crossings for Westwood and Eastwood, we've actually shifted the existing crossing, which was once here on the south side or the west side of the intersection. There's better sight lines on this eastern side, so we've made the move over to there, and it's also now going through the 6-foot wide median, which again allows for that pedestrian refuge, and gives them that time to safely cross. In addition to the pedestrian refuge, we are starting to look into the possibility of raised crosswalks. It's not necessarily a speed bump, but what it does is lifts up the pedestrian crossing, basically to make up that 6 inches of the curb, and allows pedestrians to comfortably cross, and also acts to slow vehicles down. It does have a slight incline and then decline coming off of it, so it's almost like a raised crossing table. So we're currently looking into that, coordinating with the state, and seeing how we can make that work. So in addition to the pedestrian refuge, the potential of a raised crosswalk, we'll also be providing improved lighting at these crosswalks. It does get dark out there, and we want to light them up as much as possible. So it's going to be a combination of pedestrian level lighting, decorative lighting, as well as if we need to install a overhead Cobra head on the adjacent utility poles. And again, on this view, you see the 10-foot wide multi-use trail continuing. There are some pretty steep drop-offs down here with the wetlands. So, we're looking to remain environmentally sensitive and be able to fit this trail, fit the medians in, provide everything we want to provide without causing a huge amount of wetland impacts. Oh yeah, yep. Forgot to mention on this north side, in between Eastwood and Westwood, we will be providing that connection piece in the form of a 4 to 5 foot wide concrete sidewalk. It does connect to the sidewalk that runs up Eastwood. And so, for any pedestrians that need to come down Eastwood and get over to the Westwood area, we are going to provide that safe travel for those pedestrians. Just continuing down the corridor, this is a piece of one of our longer 6 foot wide medians. At this driveway is kind of the terminus of the bituminous concrete trail that's part of this project, and the start of what will be Yukon's 10 foot wide multi-use trail. They have their own campus standards. Most likely right now we're seeing it being a concrete trail, but the goal is to provide that connectivity. So you'll also see the start of one of our potentially planted or hybrid medians. All the medians before were showing as hardscape, so concrete pavers, brick, any form of material that we're looking at now. So continuing down, we're gonna start getting into. So I just put in some examples here of what these different medians could look like. Up in the top left, just some simple, decorative grass, low maintenance, maybe once a year, someone would need to get out there and cut them down. Example of something that would need a little bit more maintenance, potential for a tree, maybe some holiday lighting if electrical can get run out to the medians. And then down in the corner, just a simple example of a brick paver or concrete paver median with the granite curbing. So this brings us to the last portion of the project as we get into campus here and Route 195. So right here, I tried to bring in basically the current site plans for Yukon's redevelopment. It shows their new driveway entrances right here and right here. There's also going to be a bus pull off for their bus stop, as well as a service vehicle. And again, just showing that concrete 10 foot wide trail on that side. We have here another mid-block crossing. Again, looking to provide a raised crossing there. And in addition to the raised crossing, I forgot to mention at the previous two crossings, we will also be looking at rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs. I will be quizzing you at the end if you can remember that. Rectangular rapid flashing beacons. I quiz my wife all the time. But yeah, that's just another safety aspect that we're looking to provide. Again, another planted median here. And then we are also proposing a concrete sidewalk connection piece from the sidewalk here on Stores Road, going across the town hall property and then connecting down into this driveway at the community center. So I know I've mentioned safety improvements a bunch, but I just want to get into it in a little bit more detail. Like I just mentioned, we are going to be proposing rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RRFBs, at the 3 mid-block crossings. I'm sure you've seen these around, but if you haven't, basically it's, activated by the pedestrian. They walk up to the crossing, they press the button just like any other crosswalk, and then basically 2 flashing lights will show up on the pole like you see there with the bright fluorescent lighting. And really it just helps to enhance the crossing. It increases that driver awareness. And as you can see, the statistics are great. Increases motorist yielding rates up to 98%. So it's a it's a big thing in the state that's happening. They're being installed more and more. And we'd really love to see them on this corridor.
So they would actually be very similar to the ones that were recently installed right here on 195. Very similar. We are looking at a couple different variations thereof that may include some overhead lighting that are being deployed in other parts of the state. But that is one option that is currently being evaluated. So similar to the ones that are in downtown and then also onto campus.
Absolutely. Thanks, Derek. So just a couple examples of the medians with that pedestrian refuge that I've been talking about. We do have the 6 foot wide, which is the standard, and it allows that space for pedestrians to cross one lane of traffic, stop if they need to, look the other direction, and then continue crossing safely. The medians overall, like I mentioned, helps to narrow those lane widths and to calm traffic. Here is a couple pictures of what a raised crosswalk looks like. So as you can tell, it's not as abrupt as a speed bump, but it still does provide that visual and also kind of a feel as you're driving that you're going up and over something. So, it will help reduce those vehicle speeds. It allows a really comfortable crossing for pedestrians. And it only helps to increase those sight lines between vehicles and pedestrians. So again, great statistics, can reduce pedestrian crashes by 45%. So one thing I haven't gotten into too much, as it's not technically part of our project at this point, we are looking at conceptual ideas for a roundabout at the Maple Road and South Eagleville intersection. Like I said, right now it is still conceptual. Part of our job is to investigate the feasibility of this. We need to coordinate with the DOT. We're looking at getting a little bit more information as far as traffic counts, especially now that school has started again. There's a lot more vehicles out, and so we're still kind of in the gathering data, part of this project, but it is definitely a real possibility, and it would tie together all of these projects that are happening at that Maple Road intersection, and also further reduce vehicle speeds. A roundabout in place of a 3-legged intersection greatly reduces the vehicle crash points. And so, like I said, we'll be preparing a memo as part of this project, coordinating with DOT, and really investigating the feasibility of a roundabout at this intersection. So what's next? We'll be moving into final design this fall and winter, looking at permitting, potential easements, coordination with utility companies, and completing that roundabout memo with our final results. We hope to be out to bid early next year for this safety improvements project, and then in construction next year, and hopefully construction completion by either the end of next year or spring of 2025. So at this point, unless Mike or Derek has anything else they want to get into, I'm happy to open it up to questions, and we'll go from there. So thank you all again for coming out, and appreciate it. We can go back to any slide and look at anything that we want to. Sure. That's a good question. I can't really speak to UConn's design schedule at this moment. But you know, the connectivity as far as the 10-foot wide trail would definitely not happen until UConn comes through, but there is still, the overall connectivity is still there. There is still that pedestrian access in front of their construction zone.
Yeah, it is a 6 foot to 8 foot wide sidewalk, so it is quite a bit wider than just a small 4 foot. They are currently conceptualizing that design at this point in time, but they really haven't slid back their schedule all that much. I believe it was a fall 2026 opening date, so it'd be a few months, about a year difference between the two. But
Derek and Nick, we can't hear the questions online, so you'll either have to repeat them or have them use the mic.
so the question was, how is this being funded? So this was a grant project called the Community Challenge Grant through the DECD, and it was funded in coordination with the non-for-profit housing authority, as well as the town and also the university. So everybody was coming to the table to move forward. So the university, with their redevelopment project, was going to redo the walkway in front of their project. Then also the town of Mansfield is also incurring an expense through ARPA of $750,000 approximately towards the extension of the sanitary sewer. So in combination of those different funding mechanisms, we were able to solidify a pretty solid grant proposal that DECD ultimately did fund.
So you're talking about if like, gotcha. Mhm. Right. Right. Understood. Yeah. Typically we would give the pedestrians and the bicyclists the right of way. Like if, that crossing where UConn's project is going to start is really like the main kind of driveway crossing, if you want to call it that. The trail is going to be up at the elevation that the trail should be. So drivers should, and we will be providing that stop bar and the stop sign, just like you said. It's tough. Right. The walkway will be up a little bit. And so drivers will have to feel like they're going to have to come up, stop at the stop sign, proceed over kind of the trail, because it will be kind of elevated and at, you know, a different cross slope than the driveway would be. But I do see your point. Sometimes it's tough to design for drivers not doing what they're supposed to do, you know?
Seeing the chaos.
All right.
And the question is, with the decision making behind the rapid light, the raised walkway, and the interruption of the intermediate islands.
Yep.
Is it an all-in? Is it a kind of a cherry pick, or is it a budget? Is it budgetary? Like, how are these decisions made with kind of vesting that? Obviously, all three elements would be incredible.
Yep.
But when you start to see a slip of these elements, is it just simply money? Is it approvals? How does that work?
Yeah. So, you know, we are talking about a state road. So it is South Eagleville Road, but it is.
So 1 second, just to try to repeat. So as this is a recording, so one of the first question that came presented was, how are we going to address reinforcing that individuals are supposed to stop prior to the crosswalk to remind them that they are supposed to yield to the pedestrian in the crosswalk? So their response was they would include a stop bar ahead of the crosswalk, the stop sign in front of the crosswalk to kind of reinforce that piece that you're supposed to stop beforehand before you proceed through the intersection. Again, it's always education and reinforcement and enforcement. Then the subsequent question, I believe, was related to how do you identify mitigating measures to try to improve pedestrian safety? I think that's what I heard. Mhm. Mhm. Right. Mhm. Yep. So the question was, how do you select from that various list of things that are being identified for this corridor? And if the best case scenario is to have all three, is my understanding. So obviously, budget is one component, but there's also approvals that have to occur at the state level as they do maintain the roadway. And the raised crosswalks have not historically been approved by the state of Connecticut on their state highways. There is a movement, I would say, and I think DOT, after the really horrible year we had last year for pedestrian fatalities, is kind of reimagining potentially some of these crossings and where those belong, as well as what measures you can utilize. Obviously, crosswalks that have a very high level of crossing of pedestrian crossings, obviously you want to invest more money in those specific crossings. So eventually it does become cost prohibitive if we do it at every intersection in anywhere. So that ultimately, I think, there's a series of decisions that get made there. So hearing from this saying, hey, we really want to see if we can proceed with all three, that's what we need to hear. Yeah. So we actually had that same discussion with Nick, and I think he had a great response. Go for it.
Yeah, so just to repeat, the question was, should we just make one crossing basically, or maybe like a raised table throughout that whole area? So we did look at providing just one crossing through there. A couple of reasons why we're not doing it. One is the sight lines. It's kind of a weird vertical geometry through there. There's a crest curve and a sag curve really quickly. And so the sight lines in the center are not ideal. And at the same time, what's going to really stop a pedestrian from coming down Eastwood and just trying to cross the road to get over to that trail, as opposed to, making their way to the correct crossing. So we're always trying to keep in mind, whatever we're providing, it needs to logically make sense for someone who's just walking the area and who probably does it all the time. So that was kind of our reasoning for keeping the two. I don't think we'd be able to get away with a raised table there. That might be kind of tough to sell. But the goal here is to go in with as much safety precautions as we possibly can. And then, start those conversations with the state and the DOT and see where they take us.
Mhm. And I think part of that alignment is, how that's really a bowl as you approach those two intersections. So as you can imagine, you have a straight line of those headlights. Those headlights are actually looking down into the ground, and they're not actually illuminating that crosswalk. So it kind of makes it almost a little bit worse to some extent, because basically those headlights are looking right into the ground instead of at the crosswalk. Whereas in the inverse, where they're kind of at the high point in the roadway, your headlights are actually you can at least see the upper half of somebody as well as beyond just the illumination that's going to be added as a result of this project.
Yep. So the question is in regard to maintenance and how the medians come into play. Yeah, if you ask a plow driver, they probably don't like medians too much. But gotcha. Yeah. And also in regard to the raised crosswalk. So the raised crosswalks are not as much of an issue. The incline and decline is gradual enough that the plow will just follow it. Basically, it's not like a speed bump where the plow might catch it. But plow drivers may not enjoy the medians, but we're not designing for the plow drivers. We are designing for safety, pedestrian safety, and to slow vehicles down. We're at this point proposing granite curbing in an effort to reduce like chipping or breaking off of concrete or bituminous. And so, you know, we'll go in with the biggest and the best. And, you know, obviously they're going to be out there plowing, but this is what we're doing for the greater good and for the safety of the pedestrians. So.
Certainly. So funding wise, the downtown loop closure project, which is the one that's connecting Separatist Road to Maple Road, is 80% federally funded and 20% locally funded through the town's capital program, which is so we have a capital account that's accumulating dollars each year towards walkways and non-motorized programs. Yes, sir. Yep. So that includes. So then we also have LOTSIP, which is 100% funded with state dollars, and the design is on the town of Mansfield. So we complete the design. So that's on that project. On this project, it includes there's a certain percentage that's getting funded by the locality, which is the ARPA funding. And a portion of that is paid for Weston and Sampson services as well. And then the remainder will pay for the balance of Weston and Sampson services, and the construction will be grant funded. So the only thing that's kind of that was in this presentation, which has not been identified as a funding, is the potential roundabout. So that's why we were seeking a conceptual plan to say, all right, is this something that would work? How much would it cost? Because it would help educate us in other areas as to what their, range of costs could be and applicability in other areas. So we thought this was a good location because of all these projects going on to kind of tie them all together. So that is the only project that doesn't have beyond conceptual design and construction dollars associated with it. So the question are we going to move the Birch Road roundabout to Maple Road? The answer is no. It will be a bit larger. It has to accommodate many different design types. Not to say that some of those trucks won't still traverse over a bump, but it will be a much larger diameter. So when downtown stores was conceptualized, one of the potential locations for a roundabout was at 195 and 275. DOT at the time was not very amenable to roundabouts, so has not been brought back up. But at this point, it would definitely take a lot of real estate and a lot of reconfiguration of that intersection because of the location of some of the buildings that are there. So it may involve some takings, essentially. So it's something that's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's definitely going to be a sensitive topic as we move forward. It is a project that's kind of all interwoven. It is a project that will occur probably in the similar time frame to this project, but it's a different funding mechanism. So it is a separate project for the purposes of funding, but it's still all part of this same corridor. So the question, I'm so sorry. So the question was, is the downtown loop closure project or the section from Maple Road to Separatist part of this project? And that was the response. So the question was concerning a signal at Separatist Road and South Eagleville Road and Sycamore. So several years ago, we had a large contingent of citizens from Sycamore, from the Glen Ridge area, request of the Legal Traffic Authority to ask the state for a signal. So that was accepted 2 years, actually almost 3 years ago at this point in time. And it's currently, you'll already start to see some of the materials being staged there. So it should be being installed in the next month or two.
overall project area. So the question was.
Try that again. So the question was, why was the crosswalk moved from the southwest? Yep. Yep. So the reason that it was being moved from Nick's perspective was they did evaluate the sight lines, meaning how people leave that intersection from a driver perspective, as well as individuals that are traveling on South Eagleville Road and how they see that crosswalk. So by shifting it to the other side of the road, they were able to improve the sight lines, or basically how easily those pedestrians in that crosswalk would be seen. They saw it was worse on the south side than it was on the north side. So in the interest of pedestrian safety, I would hope that somebody would realize that this is the better way to go, and definitely hear what you were saying, that, you know, we are inherently kind of lazy people, that you're going to go to the shortest distance. Okay, we'll go with efficient. I think Mr. Kiefner had a better idea, efficient. And I would say that, you know, realistically, pedestrians coming down Westwood towards South Eagleville should be traveling on the northeast side, since they're going against traffic. Arguably, they're obviously only doing that one direction. They're going the other way when they're going towards campus. So we hope that they would at least be willing to cross one day of the week, or one part of the day, to go for a safer crosswalk location.
Right. And if there was a sidewalk coming down Westwood already on one side or the other, it would definitely be more of a consideration. But since there is no pedestrian facility, we based it strictly on the safety, basically, and those sight lines on South Eagleville itself. On Eastwood, yes, correct. Yeah, absolutely. So vehicle turning is something that we look into for every project that we do, especially since we're proposing these medians. We need to ensure that the proper design vehicle, whether it be a big semi-trailer or you know, a single unit vehicle, has the capability to make any turning movement that they need to. So it's definitely being considered. And as we finalize this design, yeah, it's something that we'll be sure to you know, include.
That chance is not.
I'm Kathy Bergen. I live on Eastwood Road. I have a bunch of questions and comments, but I first want to say thank you for having this meeting and bringing us all here together to have the community to ask questions and give feedback. really been, hopefully useful. So we, project is to pull that up. I'm understanding by the red that there's not only in the median, but also between the sidewalk and the road. One curve to the other side, so, you know, talk about reducing changing things, but it's actually going to be working.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So the question was in regards to the pavers in between the edge of pavement and the multi-use trail. So yes, we are reducing the road width, but you are correct. We're not necessarily reducing the amount of impervious pavement. A lot of times when you get a narrow landscaped strip between, you know, two areas of pavement, it goes downhill really quick. It's also, you know, not the easiest area to maintain. So we're trying to keep those things in mind. This is almost like a full kind of streetscape view now, providing that consistency of the pavers in the median and then the pavers between the edge of pavement and the trail. So, you know, I think at the end of the day, it will look better. But, you know, there is no doubt that we, you know, are not reducing the amount of pavement for this project.
I'm seeing that there's two codes as in the current location. That's correct. So you almost have a whited out area of another curb cut into the. And I just want to make sure that there's not another white on the north side of the road there. So it would be to the west of where it's showing.
I know what she's talking about. Yeah. So the question was in regards to that additional, what looks like a curb cut there, to the west of the community center entrance. That's actually just the existing bus stop. So we haven't fully gotten into how we're going to be improving that or changing that. On these plans right now, we're still in preliminary design. We haven't done any proposed improvements, but yeah, that's not a road going in. It's just the existing bus stop location.
Yeah. Mhm. So the question was concerning the extension, which was in the University of Connecticut master plan, extending essentially Bolton Road, I believe it was called, all the way to 275. We haven't heard any indication that that's moving forward at this point in time. But ultimately it's university property, university decision, but I'm sure anything like that would be, you know, pretty well advertised. Yeah, so it sounds like there was a comment from the crowd to ensure to, had some concern about of a roundabout there and negotiating them as a pedestrian or as a cyclist. And then also a concern, making sure that trying to get the traffic to slow down as they approach that crosswalk on Maple Road at 275 or South Eagleville Road. So we did look at the sight line going through there, and we do have some cutbacks, some vegetation and the slope there to improve that sight line for those pedestrians at that location. Yep. Okay. 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 Okay.
Great, thank you.
So is there a minimum for that new dimension? Can that dimension be given back to the state, multi-use lane road, so that one feels a little bit more generous in landscape?
Right.
Part two, that trash cans.
Sure. So the question is regarding, the ability to provide a landscaped strip as opposed to the hardscape off the edge of the pavement in between the multi-use trail, and then the addition of trash cans along the corridor. So yeah, it definitely is a balancing act with the existing road area that we have now. I will say a 6-foot wide median is the minimum for pedestrian refuge. So we would like to stick to that for the safety aspect at those mid-block crossings. There is some space in the existing shoulders, a lot of which we've taken already for the medians. But I definitely understand where you're coming from. There could be, more of a mix of hardscape and landscape as opposed to, putting pavers in for the whole corridor. And so, that comment is the reason why we host these meetings, is to get that feedback and to, delve back into our design and look at what we can do. So we'll definitely keep that in mind as we continue talking with the town and as we move into final design. So. Yeah, I believe it would be regardless of if it's raised or not. But yeah, that 6 foot is what we look at for the minimum in order to, allow the pedestrians to get into the center and then stay there and then continue crossing.
Under the median, you only have one area like possibility. So it's even that's much higher crossing. So the pedestrian gives a safe place to a driver not behave, and it's protected by an operator. Will be a deflection of some sort of something.
Like, one, I agree with, but two, and three should be flipped. Because what ends up happening is the pedestrian gets back. Have safe haven, whereas if you actually had the median there, it would slow the vehicle down, giving a little bit more raise. That's just me being stuck out front here. Yeah, watching people like 15 cars go by.
We see that often when they implement that, let's just say they should have part of the process, got a continuation of that kind of. That's a condition where that raise condition as well, because we introduced a travel pattern. With the crosswalks, it's not, it's intermittent. One element, you want to be flush all the way across, you want them to be in available location. So that have that much traffic coming through there, you basically make a project, at that. Here we're blending a little bit, and we also are keeping our head on saying, what can we get DOT to do? Raise the condition, you get the gut. It's trapped because it used to be 50 people. Now you got to put catch basins in there to drain that off and discharge it somewhere. So now you're capturing water. You catch that drainage condition, which could discharge at a location that it's not discharging today. So not impossible, but those are the things we're trying to balance and build all of those options together.
Yep.
You may have just answered it. The heights of these varying, you just said, you suggested that's 6 inches. What height would you like, what height ideal? So the question is, how high are the
Raised crosswalks. Yeah. So questions in regard to the height of the raised crosswalks. It can vary. I've done a project previously that had a 3-inch raised crosswalk, very slight, but still just something to help slow vehicles down. Preferably it is 6 inches. Makes up for the whole curb reveal so that it's a flush condition for pedestrians crossing. It would also provide a higher table, so more of a ramp condition, but I guess in general, to answer your question, it can vary. Yeah.
I can't say it's ever been reviewed while I've been here. I mean, I'm presuming it was evaluated at some point during the community center construction. So I may have to look back a little bit for it. But it's definitely something that, we could, review at the very least and see what it would do to the circulation pattern at town hall. And, would that driveway maybe have to get wider? The advantage of having the 2 driveways is from a pedestrian perspective, it's less length for them to travel across, where if it was, 1 driveway, you probably would have a left and right turning lane and then also 1 entry lane. So you probably have like 3 lanes wide. Absolutely. And there's definitely a good reason to reduce those. That's why that one that's closer is only in. Well, obviously, we're still available, not just tonight. Again, thank you everybody for coming, for John being online. I hope it was somewhat useful. Looks like Michael. Nope. Nope, that was it. Just those individuals. But obviously, if you have any further comments, you can reach us at dpw@mansfieldct.org or anywhere on the website. Send us an email or phone call, or please stop by. We love when people stop by. It doesn't happen too often in engineering. But if you have any questions, please continue to provide feedback. If you think, oh, I forgot to ask that question, please reach out to us. We'd love to have the discussion and try to make this the best project for everybody here. So thank you everybody for coming into attendance tonight.
Yeah, we do have the project plans up front here, the preliminary design plans on the table for anyone who wants to look through. We can hang out for any extra questions. So yeah, thanks again. If anyone knows what RRFB stands for, I would love to hear it. Here we go. I love it. Nice. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.